When I asked for help with college, my parents said, "You should learn independence," but they spoiled my sister with full support. I left, cut off. 9 years later, at her wedding, my parents whispered loud enough for everyone, "Why is this mistake even here?" That's when her fiancé went pale and snapped, "Show some respect. This person is..." It was a Saturday, one of those warm southern evenings where the air smells like magnolias and possibility. Philip and I were dressed up, headed to a wedding at this fancy hotel downtown. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of place that makes you feel like you're stepping into a movie. The bride and groom? Friends of Philip's, mostly. I knew their faces, maybe their names, but not much else. I'm not big on crowds, but I was there for him. My rock, the man who's 5 years older and a million times wiser than anyone I've ever known. While Philip was catching up with some folks, I slipped away to the restroom to freshen up. I was walking back, my heels clicking on the polished floor, when I heard a voice, sharp and venomous, slicing through the hum of the crowd. "Oh, look at that defective item. Why is she here?" My stomach dropped. I froze, just for a second, as another voice chimed in. "Yeah, we didn't invite her, did we?" The words hit like a slap. I could feel eyes on me, hear the snickers. They weren't whispering they wanted me to hear. I'm not one to make a scene, so I kept walking, head high, pretending I didn't care. But then a voice called out, "Wait, you ugly thing, you can hear me, can't you?" My name isn't Ugly Thing, it's Hazel, and I wasn't about to let them drag me down. I picked up my pace, but the sound of footsteps followed quick, determined. Before I could process it, someone grabbed my arm hard enough to make me wince. I spun around, yanking my arm free, and there she was, Julia, my younger sister, her face twisted with anger. She stumbled back, acting like I'd pushed her, all dramatic, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Another woman rushed to her side, glaring at me like I was the villain. "Julia, are you okay? Why are you being so violent?" she snapped. I was dumbfounded. Violent? Me? I just wanted to get away. Then Julia's voice cut through again, dripping with disdain. "Have you forgotten me? I'm your sister Hazel, and this is our mother." I blinked, staring at them. Sister, mother. Those words felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Yeah, maybe I knew them once, but that was a lifetime ago. I shook my head, trying to keep my cool. "Maybe there was someone by that name around me in the past," I said, my voice steady but cold. I wasn't here to play their games. They didn't like that. Julia's face turned red, and our so-called mother looked like she'd been slapped. Before I could walk away, two men showed up, our father and a guy named Daniel, who I later learned was Julia's new husband. The wedding we were at? It was theirs. "Dad, Daniel, this suspicious person snuck into our wedding," Julia screeched, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. Our father's face soured when he saw me, but Daniel, he went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. "What's going on? Why is Hazel here?" he muttered, almost to himself. Before I could respond, Philip appeared, his calm presence like a lifeline. "Hazel, there you are," he said, his voice warm but curious. I forced a smile, trying to shake off the tension. "Sorry, got tangled up with some strange people," I said, loud enough for them to hear. Philip's eyes scanned the group, and I could tell he'd figured it out in seconds. That's my husband, sharp as a tack. What happened next was a blur of accusations and excuses. Julia kept pointing, calling me a disgrace, while our parents chimed in, spinning a story about how I was their problematic eldest daughter, kicked out 9 years ago for being a nuisance. They said I'd only graduated high school, that I was a failure who'd snuck into the wedding to ruin it. Daniel, looking more uncomfortable by the second, tried to smooth things over, but Julia wasn't having it. "Why should I apologize?" she spat. "She's the one who doesn't belong here." Philip, bless him, stayed calm, but I could see the anger flickering in his eyes. He stepped closer to me, his hand on my back, and introduced himself. "I'm Philip Anderson," he said, his voice steady. "This is my wife, Hazel." The room went quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Julia's jaw hit the floor, and our parents looked like they'd been struck by lightning. See, Philip isn't just any guy. His family runs Anderson General Hospital, one of the biggest in the state. He's studying to take over someday, a doctor in the making, and I'm his wife. That's when Daniel, Julia's husband, started stammering. "Wait, Hazel is your wife? That means we're relatives?" I couldn't help but laugh, just a little. Relatives. Number. These people weren't my family, not anymore. I looked at Philip, then back at them, and decided it was time to set the record straight. "No," I said, my voice firm. "These people aren't my family. A real family doesn't treat you the way they did." And then I let it all out. Years of pain, bottled up, came spilling out in that hotel hallway. I told them about the verbal abuse, The way they'd called me defective, told me I'd never amount to anything because I wasn't as pretty as Julia. I told them about the times they'd refused to feed me for small mistakes, given me secondhand clothes from who knows where, while Julia got designer brands. I told them about the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, locked in a hot shed in the summer, or left out in the cold because I wouldn't give Julia my books. My parents' faces went from smug to horrified. Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear. Julia, though she just got angrier, shouting that I was lying, that I was the failure, but I wasn't done. I turned to her, calm as could be, and dropped a bomb. By the way, Julia, I heard you dropped out of middle school. Is that true? The air changed. Daniel's eyes narrowed and my parents went pale. I went on explaining how I'd heard from a distant cousin, a kind soul who'd always looked out for me, that Julia had flunked her high school entrance exams, thinking she didn't need to study because she was better than me. She'd spent years holed up at home, reclusive, until our parents set her up with Daniel, a doctor at a university hospital. She'd lied about her education, claiming she'd graduated from a prestigious university, when really she was doing menial tasks at their family clinic. Daniel's face was a storm cloud. "Julia, you told me you had a degree," he said, his voice low and dangerous. She stammered, tried to deflect, but then in a moment I'll never forget, she grabbed his phone, smashed it on the floor, and stomped on it like a woman possessed. The crowd around us gasped. The venue staff rushed over, and chaos erupted. I stood there, watching it all unfold, feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a strange sense of detachment. These people weren't my family anymore. My family was waiting for me, Philip and R. I turned to my husband, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Let's go home," I said. "And maybe stop by the hotel's cake shop. They've got that new red velvet everyone's talking about." Philip grinned, his eyes softening. "Sounds like a plan." We walked out, leaving the chaos behind, and I felt lighter than I had in years. As we drove home, the city lights blurring past, I thought about how far I'd come. Growing up, my parents' house was a battlefield. They ran a small clinic, a family business passed down through generations of doctors. To outsiders, we looked perfect, well off, respectable. But inside, it was toxic. They doted on Julia, 6 years younger and, in their eyes, the golden child. Me? I was the defective one, the one who could never measure up. I tried so hard to win their love when I was a kid. I studied like my life depended on it, aced every test, but it was never enough. They'd tell me I was a burden, that I didn't deserve college, that I should be grateful they let me live under their roof. I recorded their words, every cruel thing they said, on an old phone I kept hidden. Those recordings? They're still tucked away, a reminder of what I survived. When I graduated high school, they told me to get a job to contribute to the house, so I did waitressing, cashier work, whatever I could find. But I was smart about it. I underreported my earnings, saved every penny, and secretly rented an apartment. When Julia needed space to study for her exams, they kicked me out, thinking I'd come crawling back. I didn't. I was free. Those years weren't easy. I worked multiple jobs, paid my way through college, and started a small business supplying food to hospitals. That's where I met Philip at a medical conference. He saw me not the defective girl my family labeled me, but me. Now, I'm the CEO of that company, and it's thriving. I'm not just Hazel, the high school graduate. I'm Hazel Anderson, college grad, businesswoman, wife, and mom. As for my so-called family, their lies caught up with them. Daniel got sued for shady medical practices, overcharging patients, making false diagnoses. Their clinic went under, and they came sniffing around thinking I'd bail them out because I'm married to Philip. They even showed up at his hospital, demanding to see the daughter-in-law of the hospital heir. My in-laws shut that down real quick. "Julia, she and Daniel got divorced? Last I heard, she got tangled up in an affair with some married doctor, trying to climb the social ladder. It backfired, and her parents disowned her. She's out there somewhere, struggling, but I don't have the energy to care. My focus is on my son, R, who's doing so much better after we got him proper treatment. And on Philip, who's my partner in every sense of the word. So here I am, on my porch, watching R chase fireflies as the sun sets. I'm not the girl I was back then, scared and desperate for approval. I'm Hazel, and I built this life my way." Thanks for listening, y'all. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some red velvet cake waiting inside.